So, shalom, salam alaikum, good evening. Welcome, Imam Salima el Musalima. This is a session of the Middle East Center in Israel. We are very happy and joyful to have you with us in your address to the Israeli public. First of all, allow me to introduce you. Salima el Musalima is the first female imam of the Netherlands and a Sufi artist who create avant-garde Islamic art. In her work, she seeks Allah as an artistic practice. At present, she is seeking Allah in romantic love. How are you this evening?
Salam Tom. Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm very happy to meet you finally, and I'm very honored to be in your program. So, and I really admire the work that you do. I read some articles about you, and I thought this is what is needed in the world: someone that wants to build bridges, someone that wants to connect people and understand from all sides, from spiritual side, from practical side, from political side. You have a holistic approach, and I really very much like that. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I really appreciate it. Compliments are highly appreciated always, and coming from you as a real game changer or a new kind of leadership in the Islamic world is a great honor for me. Thank you. But it takes two sides to build bridges.
Yes.
So let's start on your side of the bridge.
Inshallah.
First of all, let's start by asking you, what would you like to say to the people of Israel in this time and place? What is your message to us?
Let me start by saying that at this moment, the people of Israel are under a lot of pressure, internationally speaking. You just have to go on Twitter and you will see a lot of garbage and a lot of hate spoken about the people of Israel. I know that the people of Israel have their own story, and that Israel is not just Jewish people, but Christian people, Muslim people, Druze people. It's actually the United Colors of Benetton country of the world. So there is so much potential in the approach of Israel of uniting people from Africa, from Asia, from Muslim background, from Arab background, from all kinds of background, and you are making a successful society, not just surviving, you are prospering. You're showing the world that even people from third world countries, they can integrate in a few years. Here in Europe, they are busy integrating 20, 30 years. It's not succeeding. But in Israel, you can see that despite all the problems, despite all the hate, it's a miracle. Just that you are thriving, not just surviving. It's a miracle. And I just want to say, as a Muslim and as a woman and as a Muslim leader, inshallah, that we see you, that although the world might be at this moment very opinionated about your country, we are also very much admiring what you are doing on a deeper level, not just on this temporary level, which is war. Sadly, the war is very, very difficult for a lot of people. But we see also the other sides, and I want to say that we love you for that, because you're making the world a better place just by doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. So obviously, a female imam is not something common or conventional. Can you tell us about the journey that led you to being a female imam?
I will tell you, it's funny because it started actually with a peace conference in Amsterdam that I co-organized. At that moment, there was an organization in Amsterdam called Salam Shalom. And Salam Shalom was a group of friends, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, that wanted a different story than the story that we saw in the media and the news. At that time, there were terrorist attacks on Jewish neighborhoods in Paris. There were terrorist attacks in synagogues in Scandinavia. And Europe was in a very grim and sad situation at that moment. So we wanted to do something positive as Amsterdam, which is historically known as a city of tolerance and a city of modernity and modern values. So we wanted to take leadership in the European context. So we invited groups that worked for peace all over Europe, so that we can work on peace on a very big level from a grassroots perspective, that Muslim, Jewish, Christian leaders work together so that we can push for solidarity and enlightenment. So I co-organized that event, and at that time I just sent emails to a group that worked in Paris. The name of the group was, I don't remember exactly, but Solidarité Judéo-Musulmane, and the leader of that organization was Rabbi Sarfati, a very charismatic older Moroccan rabbi, and he collaborated with a Moroccan imam. And that Moroccan imam, I will not mention his name because that is not really important, but we collaborate. When we met, for me, it was the first time that I met an imam, because in Islam, the women quarter is separated from the man quarter, and it's a very for me it was the first time I ever talked to an imam, and he was really a modern imam. So he came to me, he wanted to hug me. He was dancing with Jewish people, and he was really like an exemplary leader in the Muslim imam context. So I was very enamored by him, and he told me that he was also interested in art. At that time, I was an art student, and he told me he would have studied art in Amsterdam, but he had some coincidences, so he went and did only Islam, and he became eventually a judge in Morocco, because in Morocco, like in Judaism, Islam mixes with jurisdiction. So he was also an important judge in Morocco. And in Paris, he was the leader of hundreds other imams. So this was an important imam. And I was sitting with him, and we were sitting at the kosher deli, and they had some Jewish bread for us. And especially the Jewish people, they had very strict kosher demands. So we went not to halal, but we went to kosher. And then he told everybody, he said to the Muslims, this is haram, you are not allowed to eat kosher meat. And I told him, everybody was like scared when he told that. And they said, oh my God, so one guy was spitting out the food. But I told him, no, that is not true. I told him, Muslims, we can eat kosher meat. And in Morocco, we had kosher butchers, and there were Muslim clientele going there because the meat was of a higher quality. At that time, I don't know now, but at that time it was a very high quality. So Muslim buyers went to the kosher restaurant, kosher butcher. He said, "You are sharp. I like that." So that was the first connection we had, and then I thought, okay, now I have his attention, and I was always wanting to ask questions about women's rights. Always I wanted to ask questions about women's rights to the imam. So I told him, in Morocco, women inherit half of men. And I knew the story of my grandmother who took care of her parents, but she received only half of the inheritance, and not even that. So, and her brothers were much more affluent than her, and they received her double the amount, and she was older than them. It felt injustice to me. And I told him, what do you think about this? And then he told me, this is Islamic law. We cannot change it. And somehow I was like, it was like a thunder came onto me. I thought, oh my God, here we have this modern, almost secular imam, and he's telling me this is divine law. I told him, what about slavery? I told him the Quran is talking about slavery. Should we have slavery now because it is divine law? And he told me, I'm not going to have this discussion with you. So the rabbi was listening, the priest was listening, everybody was listening. And I was so angry. I almost wanted to attack him. You know, the rabbi was like telling us, like, don't fight, like, please, peace. We are like a peace group here. We should not fight. So everybody was listening to us, and I was almost attacking him. But that was for me the beginning that I thought I need to do something. And first I thought I'm going to to boycott the mosque. I'm never going to the mosque again because this imam think he's modern. Look how he's thinking. The others, they would think much radically. They will not respect women's rights. So I was angry, but then I was studying also art, and I was thinking about, like, I'm an artist. I'm create things. Why can I not create something that is connected to solve this? And then Eureka, I had the idea to create my own mosque as an artistic exercise. So when I created my mosque, I wanted to talk freely about everything. I wanted to talk about sex. I wanted to talk about homosexuality, politics, all the things that the imams were not really going in deep enough, I found. I wanted to go deep enough. I wanted to understand it, not just on the surface. So then I created my own mosques, and I was researching everything myself, and it liberated me. And I posted my khutbah, my weekly khutbah, I posted them online, and directly they were like a Turkish Islamic organization. They came to me, what are you doing? What do you think about hijab? I told him, you are not a woman, and I advise only women in matters of women's things. You're not a woman. So if you want to ask me that question, we should do that in public so that other women can profit from it. He said, I'm not going to give you any promotion, and this is then when I saw that these paid people were going to this art student and taking her very seriously, I thought, this is very powerful. It's very powerful to be, even in name, even if I don't have any money, I don't have any power, even just saying I'm a female imam is making these men nervous. So that was, for me, that was like a feeling of power. And so I did that for 1 year long. I made like an artistic practice. I gave khutbahs on all kinds of topics, and I wanted to do that freely. I studied law before I studied art, so I wanted to do a lot of due respect to free speech, because I was very much angry to some Muslim scholars that said that you should not be able to offend Islam, because you have like a lot of people that say you are offending the Muhammad, you should not make a picture, you should not. It's not in the Quran. It's not written in the Quran that you should not offend the Prophet. He's just a human being. And I thought this goes against my Enlightenment values, because I grew up with the Enlightenment. I studied law, European law, that was totally based on the Enlightenment. So I wanted to make the Enlightenment a part of my Islamic practice. And so that was my goal, the enlightenment of the Islam. I was thinking very bigly, like to enlighten the Islam in the Netherlands. So I had like plan, how can I do this politically? And I studied the organizations here, and a lot of them were funded through the Muslim Brotherhood, which I don't really liked, but they had the money, so they did what they did. And so the end result was that I was getting more frustrated and more frustrated, and entering like this feminist world wind, and feeling I'm powerless, because I found out that in the Netherlands they don't give a lot of power to women, even though they say they give a lot of power. They say, in the case of Muslims, they say, well, the imams, they have a big public, so we will talk to them. You don't have anyone, so we will not talk to you, we will not give you money, we will not subsidize you. So I was very angry, like typically feminist angry, and I there was feminist solidarity was lacking, because the feminists here are secular, they're not religious, so they don't want more imams. They say you should become secular. I should like assimilate to their values. So I was getting angrier and angrier, and at the end I said, no, I need to be an artist. Now I'm an activist. Now I'm an activist and getting angry at these men. I need to become an artist. So how can I become an artist? I thought about it a long time, and then I thought, I'm going to look for Allah as an Islamic practice and also an artistic practice, because everybody is talking about God, but nobody's looking for God. So I thought to myself, if I look for God, then at least I'm working with material that is personal and that is not just based on books and theory, but based upon something that I have experienced in my life. And that was actually 10 years ago that I started looking for Allah as an Islamic artistic practice. And once I did that, once I surrendered to that, I let go of the activism. I let go of the frustration and things, because for me, the enlightenment, what is enlightenment? What is good? What is wrong? Now you have, for example, the ICC that says Netanyahu is a war criminal. He should be delivered. But then other countries say, no, he's not. He's in a difficult context. So even all these laws and enlightenment, they are creating more problems. They're not taking away the problems. So I thought the biggest enlightenment is Allah. That's the biggest, and God. And I believe in God, that God is love. I believe that God is compassionate. And so I thought the biggest enlightenment, I don't know what enlightenment is. So God is the enlightenment. So I started 10 years ago looking for Allah as an artistic practice. And the first time I did that, I literally looked for Allah. Everything that happened in my life, I saw it as a sign from Allah. And at a certain moment, it started working. Like it felt as if God was communicating with me. I was literally experiencing miracles, and it was getting biblical almost. And it was part of a project of looking for the stranger. And in this case, Allah was the stranger that is really nearby. And I did it for 2 months. And at the end of 2 months, I was getting really scared, because I was having this experience that nobody else is having. And I could communicate, well, look at what happened, look at what happened, look at what happened. And it felt like the movie P. There is this movie, this cult movie about a man that is looking for the mathematics of God in everything. And he was getting mad, and everybody's saying, what are you talking about? So that's what I was experiencing. It was very scary. And thankfully, God gave me, my interpretation is that God showed me images of Icarus. And for me, that was a sign, if I go further, I will become crazy. I need to stop now, because this is the warning, Icarus. So when that happened, I was like this. I had some kind of experience like how Moses or the Prophet Muhammad would have felt. It was like really scared. I was really scared. And the thing is, you get, when you're not enough grounded and you're having these spiritual experiences, it can become really scary. Even though it's loving, I felt a lot of love and a lot of synchronicity, but I was not ready for this level of depth. It was scaring the hell out of me. So then I found out, okay, I need to look for God indirectly, not directly looking for God. I need to go indirectly. So then I had a project that I went to Paris looking for love in Paris, and to collect money for orphans in Sierra Leone. And I knocked on every synagogue and every mosque, and I asked them if they had a place for me to sleep, even on the floor. And the money that I would save on the hotel, I would send to these children. And also there at that moment, I had a blog, and it's still online, where I wrote my daily experiences. But even then, I had like these miraculous synchronicities happening in my journey. I stayed for a month in Paris, and I met these amazing people. And at the end, the church where God for me was Église Amour de Dieu, which was a black church. And the guy that was the reverend there, he had really difficult experiences. He was attacked by Muslims. He was attacked by Christians. He had the most horrific. He was without a home. And then there was a time in his life he decided that he would become a servant of God. So then he decided he would become a reverend, and he created his own church together with his wife. He became very successful later on, and his church was all about, literally, he was doing the African way, that at the end of the meeting, God would come. So everybody was waiting for God to come, and we were like singing, everybody was singing. And So for me, he was not perfect. We had our misunderstandings and all of that, but eventually I found God in church, not in the mosque. The mosque, the imam of the Grand Mosquée de Paris, he was talking about the Hajj and how sacred this month is. But then when I came to him in his office, he told me, I asked him if I could sit. He told me, "You're not allowed to sit. Just stand up. What is your question?" So I told him, "I come here all the way from Holland to visit your mosque so that we can help the children in Africa, the poorest country in the world." And then he told me, "That's not part of my job. Thank you very much. Goodbye." For me, that was such I went sadly outside, almost crying. And then there was a woman outside. She was begging. She was like a beggar. And she had told me, "Why are you so sad?" And I told her, "Yeah, I would just got kicked out of by the imam." And he told me, "I'm not allowed to sit on a chair." And he told me, "You cannot help me, help the children of Africa." So she told me, "No problem. You can go to my place. You can sleep in my place. And the hotel you can save there, you can send it to the children of Africa." So I started crying when the homeless woman had more compassion than the rich imams that they receive so much money from Dubai, from the French government. They have so much, and they have so much space. I could sleep there. I could do any, it was such a beautiful like project, but God taught me that he was not in the mosque. He was outside with the beggars. That's where God was. So, and I had so many miracles. There was a woman from Syria begging on the street. She invited me into her home, and she gave me food and drinks. I gave her nothing. She gave me money and all of that. No, not money, sorry. She gave me food and let me enter her family to help the children of Africa. And this woman was homeless. She was begging on the streets and taking care of her family. Her husband was taking care of the kids. And when I had that experience for me that God is not where you expect God to be. God is where the heart is. And so then recently I took it upon myself to look for Allah in romantic love. I'm 45 years old and I haven't had a real like husband marriage. So I thought I'm going to look for God in romantic love. And I come from like a broken family. I had a lot of issues with men. And so it was not an easy way to go from there to going finding God in romantic love. It was like mission impossible almost. It was 4 years ago that I started, and I had so many experiences that I don't believe that I had. I see myself as a very normal person, but in the beginning, I fell in love with Theo van Gogh, who is a famous Dutch movie maker who got murdered by an Islamic extremist. And I deeply fell in love with him for a year, and I started writing stories, and we were talking to each other, discussing Islam, radical Islam, discussing the problems between men and women. And he pointed my own hypocrisy out. He was very good at that in the stories. So Allah gave me these. I just started writing stories. I didn't know why I started writing stories. I just started, and it lasted for a year. And after that year, I started thinking about marriage. Maybe someone could get us married, and so then I thought, what am I doing? I'm becoming crazy now. I'm getting married to someone who already died. I need to stop this. So I prayed to Allah to help me stop this madness, this majnoon that I was getting myself in. And it stopped like a few days later. It stopped, and I went on dating on the dating apps again, and the men on the dating apps in the West, the Muslims and the non-Muslims, they were just interested in having sex. And I thought I was looking for God in romantic love. So it became difficult for me. So on a holy Islamic night, I started praying like, "Please, God, help me find you, help me find my soulmate. That was my prayer. And I had tears in my eyes, help me find my soulmate. And the next day, I posted on Facebook a picture of myself as a man. And that was just a joke. But a few hours later, I was starting to feel like a man. I was starting to have thoughts like a man. It was not that I was not there, but I felt his energy. I learned so much from that experience because I learned that as a man, I would be totally different. I would be an alpha man. I would be dominant. I would be more aggressive. I would look differently at other men. And I would be financially very successful. That's also something that I learned because I'm putting all my madness in finding Allah, but he was focused on more earthly matters and he had the same intensity as I do. So he was very successful. He was going to the gym and he took away all my prejudice and hate against men because I found out that like when you hate men, you hate yourself because all of us, we have a man and a woman in us. You know, we're created from men and women. And so that experience healed me from the pain that I have with my father. And I also became an advisor on dating and men. So I started giving women advice about how to date men, what kind of men they should date. And I knew exactly like how a man or how my man would think. So I think women have no idea how men are. Women have like no, at all. We have really no idea how men are. And as Salim, I loved numbers. I loved science. I loved repairing things. I started loving a Porsche 911 Classic. And I wanted to go to the garage. I wanted to go out at night at the pub. You know, I wanted to go to, I never went to the pub, but when I was Salim, I went to the pub. I wanted to go to soccer games. I never in my life went to soccer, but as Salim, I needed to go to the soccer games, even if it was ladies' soccer that I went to. But when I looked in the public, they were all guys. They were just guys supporting the women. So I learned that there was a different mechanism that men are working with than women, that we are really complementary to each other. And so after knowing how Salim is, I thought, okay, now I know what kind of guy suits me. Normally, I was always looking for the guys that were like living in poverty and spiritual and all kinds of that. But Salim was not like that. Salim was very successful, not very spiritual, a little bit, but not very spiritual. He was looking at, you know, he was very down to earth and he liked boxing, soccer, fitness. It was the opposite of the guys that I normally dated. But so I learned that the guys that I would normally date, they were usually intimidated by me. And now I know why, you know. I understood why, because there is a dominant man inside of me that intimidates them. So there was not a balance between us. Anyway, now we will get to the good stuff because I know the people here in Israel want to know something that is connected to them. The war started. The war started in 2003, and I was looking for Allah and romantic love, and the war started, and 7th of October happened. And for me, that was to see the images that I saw. I was distraught by what I saw. And what made me more distraught is looking at my Muslim friends and Muslim acquaintances, leaders, other imams, and they showed very little solidarity. None, actually. Some of them, some showed solidarity. There are some activist Muslim friends that did show solidarity, but the most did not show any solidarity. I was shocked. And because I was shocked, I started waving with the Islamic Israeli flag and support. I sending all kinds of messages to my Jewish friends in solidarity. I was sending messages to Israel, to the embassy. And I thought I wanted to show that someone is caring, a Muslim leader is caring, because I was shocked that they said, well, this is because of the occupation. This is why this happened. Well, these people are civilians. They are not occupying anyone. You know, these people, most of them were leftists, actually. They were fighting for the rights of the people in Gaza. I was shocked by the lack of solidarity. And so for 1 month, I was really sharing a lot of what was happening and talking about this. But then when Israel fought back and very fiercely, images started to come in from Gaza, and I saw the most horrific images that are normal during war. But I received them on Instagram, and I saw these images everywhere, and dead children and parents putting their children in bags. And then I looked at my Jewish acquaintances, and I looked at the rabbis specifically, and I saw none of them doing what I did, none of them sharing any solidarity with the Muslims. And I had the same shock that I had with the imams, but this time I think I was more admiring of the Jewish community, because here in Europe, the Jews are intellectuals. They are known for their activism. They are known for human rights, known for so many things. And then to see that community not communicating their empathy towards these innocent children. Some of them did, and I'm very thankful that they did, but not for me. My feeling, it was not enough. So I was getting angry. I was feeling very angry. But I could not go to my friends, Jewish friends, and tell them I'm very angry now. And I'm feeling angry because you're not doing what I did. You're not waving in solidarity with the children of Gaza. But I didn't want to do that. So I prayed to God to lead me, to give me some kind of direction, because I saw the other imams, and they were like sharing them. Images of Israel being evil and telling that this is occupation and this is horrific and that God will punish them and all of that. And I thought to myself, before I say anything, I need God to give me a sign. And then something crazy, another miracle happened. God gave me the feeling how I would be as a Jewish settler. I created a new picture of Salim, and his name was Settler Shlomo. That was his name, a Moroccan Jew. And he was amazing. He was in the IDF, and I started writing stories where I could put all my anger towards him and tell him, what are you? I hate you. You look at all the kids, what you're doing. I could express these emotions that I cannot express to my Jewish friends. I could express to him my anger. And every time I talked to him, he would like line out piece by piece. He was loving, he was my soulmate. So we had this connection, and I could get very angry at him and express myself, but there still would have been love between us. And he told me every time we spoke, he would win. He would win the arguments. Every time we would have like 2-3 pages of fighting. He would not fight, but he was like this very tough IDF guy that is really like a big bear, and it's very strong and tough, and he was very wise at the same time, and he knew everything. He knew the story. He was sharp, and he said, I'm not just fighting for he said, you know what Israel is? He said, Israel is Muslims. It's Jews. It's Druze. Israel is very diverse. It's not against the Muslims. He said, I am protecting Muslim families. He said, if I not go fight, these Muslim families are in danger. They kill everyone. Hamas kills everybody. They're not looking at Muslim or Jews. They just want to kill everyone. They are radicals. And in the end, he also posed another thing. He said, look at Sudan. Why haven't you written about Sudan? There is a genocide going on in Sudan. Why aren't you writing? Sudan is United Arab Emirates are funding the radicals in Sudan, and you've never written about that. And he said, I'm not going to blame you that you are an anti-Semite. But why are you not fair? Why are you just writing about the Jews? I'm not going to say you are an anti-Semite, but he gave me this very sharp question that pointed out my own hypocrisy, and I didn't know how to answer him. So then I started sharing about what happens in Sudan. Nobody almost did, but I started Only the Sudanese are talking about what is happening in Sudan. So then I saw that there is a hypocrisy, that so many angry people in Europe, nobody's angry about what is happening in Sudan. And it's the same level of tragedy as what, maybe even bigger, because Sudan has much larger hunger, more people than Gaza. And I saw that God showed me, my interpretation was that God was pointing out my own hypocrisy. So after having so many conversations, every time I went to Settler Shlomo, he would answer me tough and lovingly. And so then I thought the problem is Hamas. I will talk to my inner Hamas fighter. He's the problem of everything. I had one conversation with my inner Hamas fighter, and the same thing happened. He was also a really great guy. He said, I'm stuck. I cannot work. There's no job. I can only, if I want to have some peace and living, I would have to join Hamas. And he said, we are entitled to fight. If you look at international law, we are entitled to fight for our rights. The international community is giving us the. So I was also with him very angry. Why did you attack these women and children in Israel? Why did you do that? And he said, we did not. It was me. So he was not attacking women and children purposefully. He said we were in a war. So every time I said to him what he did was horrible and he was a monster, every time he had an answer to answer me. So then I thought, if the problem is not Settler Shlomo and not Hamas, then I am the problem. This is like, I personally experienced this Sufi kind of dilemma that if they are not the problem, then I am the problem. And it was horrible. I entered into this depression. And I talked about this story at a group setting of artists, and there were a lot of liberal students that were very pro-Gaza, and they said to me, they were talking about me, and a friend of mine listened, and they said, she's a crazy, stupid person, like Gaza. Everybody knows Gaza is suffering, and look what she's doing. And so they had no idea about the suffering that I was having. They were just judging, and they were just saying, sitting in their middle class families' home, looking at things and putting their own judgment on it. I had these conversations that I all wrote on my Facebook. Everything I wrote on my Facebook, and I had these conversations, and it was horrible to find out that you are the problem, and that whatever position I take, that eventually, if I hate Hamas, I hate myself. If I hate Settler Shlomo, I hate myself. So I found out that love would be the only solution. But how to love someone who is a stranger? It's almost impossible. But for me, there was love, because I loved both of my sides. I loved Settler Shlomo and Hamas Salim, but they were killing each other. And for me, it was horrible, because I entered into this nihilistic kind of realization that what God was showing me is that the problem is so sophisticated that it's actually a spiritual problem and not political problem. And it was for me horrible to carry this, because I did this on my own, and I was not in contact with a lot of people. And I just need to look like all those things that happened on October the 7th, and all those things that happened in Gaza, the children, all of that was me doing that. That was me doing that. And I could not carry it. Most people want to be on the good side. We are the good ones, they are the bad ones. Then you can carry such thing. But when you find out you are this monster and doing all of this in multiple realities, maybe, I could only like pray to God to give me grace, or to help me to do something about it. And then I started sharing this story to people, and I shared it on a female imam conference in Brussels. I presented it with slides with the pictures of all my inner men. And there was a moment that two groups of imams were fighting against each other. One was pro-Israel, and the other one, the German imam, was pro-Israel, and there was someone who was Palestinian who was very angry at her. So they were starting to fight with each other. And I found out that me as an artist was the only bridge, that the others were all activists. And seen from their perspective, they were all right. But if they are all right, they will attack each other, even in a female imam setting. So I offered a solution, an artistic solution, Islamic artistic solution. And I have friends in the Netherlands who also make art. One of my friends is Tariq Sadouma. I'm very much a fan of his work. And I found out that during this conflict, artists, I looked around a lot of artists, they were not making art. They were making either leftist art, which is the bulk of art that is currently made, leftist art, and they have to see Netanyahu as Hitler. That's leftist art. The bulk of all the art that's currently promoted is leftist art. They have to look at Netanyahu as this Hitler. And there is maybe some right-wing art in maybe a small group, and they were also seeing the Muslims as the bad ones. But to be sincere and to be real, to make real art, you need to not have a political agenda. You need to surrender to something. You need to surrender. I surrendered to God, and God surprised even me in my work. And I find that the art that I am making and that Tariq Sadouma is making is independent art. It's lived through art. I'm not just posing. I really have been angry and maybe even anti-Semitic towards Jewish people because they were not showing the empathy that I was waiting for. But when I talked to my inner Hamas Salim, I found out that I had some prejudices that I was not aware of, and that I humbled myself. That I don't know anything, that I don't know anything of any situation. The only thing I know is that the experience that God showed me is that I need to humble myself and look in the mirror, and not look at others, but look in the mirror. And my mirror was very harsh towards me, because both men were great. I loved Settler Shlomo. He was such a great guy. He posted pictures of a boxing ring inside the synagogue, which I really liked. There is in Fes, there is a synagogue, and an old picture of a boxing ring inside of a synagogue. And it was just, this tough guy. I started to really like IDF soldiers with that kind of mentality, which is kind of crazy because everybody around me was saying these IDF soldiers are killing children. But I had such a different experience. I had an experience of this very warm and very loving guy who is protecting Muslims, who is protecting Jews, who's protecting everybody, and doing the best he can in a very horrible situation, sacrificing his life. And I also learned that to have more safety, we need more people in the IDF. If we want more safety, we need more soldiers in the IDF. So we should not make them look bad, what they're currently doing, trying to find them online and say bad things. We need more people on the ground to make it more safe. Otherwise, you have to use robots which cannot discern between civilians and non-civilians, which make bigger casualties. So these IDF soldiers, they are needed because they're making it human again. And so I started to understand the complexity, which I didn't understand, because when you look at on social media, you just see dead children, and you want to do something, and you get angry at what you perceive as the cause of everything. But God showed me something else. And so then I thought to myself, what can I do? What can I do to help? So then I thought, I'm going to do an organization. I'm going to create an organization because I'm going to use this Sufi experience that I'm having to give a different perspective that maybe can inspire people, and Muslims and Jews alike, that it's more complex. And I also learned that I'm very loving towards the Lubavitcher Rebbe somehow. He became an important person for me. And I don't know, maybe because I'm a Sufi, and the Sufi is connected to the message that maybe he's also a Sufi in a Jewish context. And I started loving everything the Lubavitcher Rebbe did, and writing about him and sending letters to his grave. And I'm not Jewish, but he became for me, God gave me this feeling like this is a saintly man, and I need to listen to him and I need to connect with him because he's giving me something. And so so that yeah, what can I say? This experience was for me the experience of a lifetime. And I wish that I don't wish because it was horrible at a certain moment for me. I don't wish that everybody experienced this, but for me, love is the. I found out that love and trying to stop yourself from judging, and which is very difficult. I'm one of the biggest judgmental people I know, so it's very hard. But thank God I had this experience, and I now know that I have a responsibility towards all the children and also towards God to remain connected with the spirit and not to go into my ego and say, well, this group is this and this group is bad and this is how we will solve it, and to allow God to guide you. So that's for me my lesson, and to make real art, not to make leftist art. At this moment, leftist art is very much supported and financed and all of that. And I feel that we need to have a different kind of art that is superior than just being part of a kind of a propaganda machine, but to surrender to something greater than just our egos. So I'm a very big fan of Tariq Sadouma. He's doing great things now. I advise everybody to look him up because he is currently working together with Curtis Yarvin, and they are doing a revolution in art at this moment in the Venice Biennale, because they are going to address everything that I've talked about. And I'm very excited that finally real art is getting a podium. And we have been, for a very long time, we have been in the darkness and canceled a lot of times, not taken seriously. But now I see it is superior because I've seen like Marina Abramovic, who is very successful at this moment, feminist artist, which had her art was like this peace dress, and talking about that Israel needs to stop and all of that. But she doesn't give a new paradigm in her art, and we need new paradigms in art. Otherwise, it's just a repetition of chess, of game that we are already repeating. And I feel that in my work, it's really avant-garde. I'm not just an avant-garde imam that goes, in front in prayer. I'm making art that has never been made in this way before. And I'm very humbled by it because I feel that I don't have any control over it. It's really by inspiration. And so I'm very thankful that God has given me these experiences, which hopefully can inspire other people.
Amazing, thank you. So you were describing a few ideas and experiences that are very Sufi. I'm not sure to what extent our non-Sufi oriented crowd will make sense out of all of it. We will get back to it. But first of all, I would like to pick on something small that you said on the way and to ask you about the female imam congregation. So are there many female imams? Is this a new thing? How do you communicate? Is there like a union of female imams? Can you elaborate on that, please?
At this moment, there are female imams all over the world. There are female imams in Morocco, in France, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Italy. We are very active, and most female imams finance their own congregation. A lot of them pay from their own salaries. We don't get any funding from the Middle East. So I think this should change. If the Middle East is really invested in changing things, they should invest. Thankfully, there is one investor, a Russian Muslim investor, female. No, she was Uzbekistan. She was a million. She paid for for the congregation in Brussels that made it possible that we would meet each other, because even that we haven't done yet. And that conference was the start, hopefully, of more activities that we can do together as female imams. And the thing that female imams give to the world is that we have our Islam is a compassionate Islam, and we have very big activities that are connected with dialogue. There is a friend of mine, Soraya Dean, who's also a female imam. She's doing a lot of dialogue. I think the male imams can learn a lot from what female imams are doing. And we're having much less funding than the male imams, but we're doing much more than they are doing. Even for me, I worked very hard on the project of Settler Shlomo, and sometimes it was 24 hours. I was working hard on it, and nobody was paying me, but I was working hard on it. So I think the male imams are very lazy, and they just give one sermon in a week, and they're not taking any like creativity or a different approach or something new. It's usually the usual kind of chatter. And so I think female imams deserve their space, because we are doing so many good things.
So I want to delve into that. It's a really complicated issue, and it's more complicated for Jews to understand. So first of all, let's talk about sects inside Islam. Because obviously, if we will be looking at the classical Sunni or Shia dogma, there's no room for female imams.
That's true.
So how would you describe the sects or the division of female imams to different Muslim sects? So are you maybe a new sect by its own?
That's funny. I always saw myself as a Moroccan Muslim. And I think these kind of different sects is like a regional choice. Every region has what suits them. Like in Turkey, they like their alcohol. They like to drink their alcohol. So they have an Islam that suits that. Like Alawi is like more liberal, more free. And so every region has their own kind of interpretation. And Morocco and a lot of African countries are Sufi by tradition. And Morocco even has a tradition of being the descendants of the Prophet. So we have this extra layer and tradition. And I feel that I come from this tradition. I come from the Sufi Moroccan tradition, because that's what I grew up in. I grew up with saints and marabouts, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe fits perfectly in that context, So he's, for me, also a saint, like a Marabout in Morocco. I would visit his grave and ask God for guidance. I know that we're not praying to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, we're praying to God. But he was someone that lived, biblically. He lived in the biblical way. And that is something that we should strive to or admire or try to put in our own context of our own lives. And this man has been brought to inspire so many people. And there is also Baba Sali, the Moroccan Rebbe. And I connected with Baba Sali, and Baba Sali is also a Sufi, a saint in a Sufi context. And I wanted to go actually to Baba Sali, but I didn't go. The war broke out and I didn't have any money. So I still want to go to Baba Sali, because I want to get married. So Baba Sali helps women that want to get married. So personally, I come from the Muslim context of Morocco. And to explain the Imam thing, because I'm doing this as an art, it's permissible. I'm not saying I have the same stature as a normal imam. Actually, I find myself much more interesting, because I'm looking for Allah and I'm doing all these kind of arty, crazy thing. A normal imam would never do this. He would never do these kind of things that I'm doing. Even maybe talking to you would be maybe difficult because the community would get angry or whatever. So I'm not bounded by these structures and rules and all of that. I'm only bounded by God. And I feel that is giving me so much freedom. And so personally, I don't want to get any rights. I don't want them to give me any rights because I can do everything. You know, I can give sermons, I can make art, I can look for Allah. The Prophet never was accepted as an imam. He just became an imam. So he didn't need others to make him an imam. And I'm following his example. So we are making it more difficult in our heads than it actually is. So I am an imam. That's my fate. God made me an imam. I didn't expect it. I wanted to become a judge. I wanted to study law, but something else happened in my life, which brought me to art and brought me to make avant-garde imam Islamic art. So
So when you're going back to the issue of female imams, first of all, are you threatened?
Threatened. Not really. Not really. Well, because I am sometimes I'm a bridge between a lot of people. I'm a bridge between extreme right, between Muslims, between liberals, leftists, between Jews, and so I function as a bridge. So sometimes people can give me hate because of that, because I'm the first one in their context. They don't know anyone except me. So I have been in difficult situations, like for example, one time I did the sermon in a context of Pim Fortuyn, who is he was seen as an extreme right politics, but I don't see him as an extreme right politician. But he was murdered, and every year they remember him, and I did a sermon there, and there were people threatening there in the group, extreme right people that made threatening. They didn't want a Muslim woman to be there. Um, Sometimes I had like subtle threats by Muslims that said, you are doing shirk, you're doing something that is not from God, that you're going against God. But that's just words sometimes. I think that mostly I have been accepted, and because I'm filling in a niche. I'm not pretending to be anything except myself and make the art that I'm making. So I don't feel that there is any threats or whatever. But I do am active for homosexual Muslims, and recently homosexual imam, the first gay imam in the world was murdered by extremists. And I am an activist for gay Muslims as well. So it's not really like a safe space to be in, but I feel like I'm a jihadist, you know. I fight for God, and a jihadist is not afraid of things. You're only afraid of God, and whatever God decides, that will be. And but no, I don't see any threats or whatever. Not in the sense of, I think, rabbis, because rabbis at this moment, they really need to protect their synagogues, and this is like a real threat during these political wars. Not in that sense. I think rabbis at this moment are more under threat.
Great. And how would you describe the congregations or the followers of female imams? Do you have male followers of female imams, or those are, or your followers are also female Muslims? How does it work?
My followers are usually people that are interested in complexity. People that are like they have seen everything. They know like the normal traditional imams, traditional art, traditional thing. They want something new, and what I'm offering is something different, something new, and not necessarily Muslims. I have also Christian followers. I have Jewish followers. I have atheist followers. I have a very diverse kind of group, and it varies. Sometimes there's someone, sometimes not. I'm now currently not really active online because they deleted my accounts. I was active on Facebook and Instagram. They deleted it. So now I'm focusing on creating my organization. So I'm using that time to create my organization. But so my followers are very diverse, but usually people that are looking for complexity and are not just satisfied with black and white.
What do you think the impact would be? I mean, if we were talking before 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, we weren't talking about a congregation of female imams. It's a new thing. Where do you think that the future will lead us in this aspect? Will we see a wide phenomena of female imam? Will it become something that is common in the same way that male imams are?
Well, I think we can look at our colleagues, the female rabbis. I think you are much more successful in creating structure and dynamism. And there are also female Christian pastors. But the difference between, I think, the female rabbis and pastors and the female imams is that the rabbis and pastors are, for as far as I know, they are getting paid. They have a weekly salary, but the female imams at this moment, they are paying from their own pockets. They are not getting any funding. So this is the difference. It's harder for us than it is for female leaders from other groups. So because of that financial aspect, I think it's more difficult to do this on a big scale, to do a lot women imams. But in Morocco, for example, Morocco has a type of female imam that is called mordichat. And the mordichat, they are paid by the Moroccan government because the Moroccan government understood that female leadership lessens radicalism. And so they have very strategically chosen a kind of female imams. They do everything except give the sermon in the mosque, and they are getting paid. So I think then in that context, it can become strong. But in the European context, I think there are too few people, and the ones that are doing it are really passionate about what they're doing. But there is a daily struggle of finding the time and finding the money. So I think it's more difficult to make it big. But even though we are very small, still our voice is very strong, and we are giving solutions where the male imams, a lot of them are stuck in a kind of past, and they are just repeating themselves. So the female imams have much more potential for the 21st century. So I hope that the Middle East will either stop funding the male imams that are not really giving a lot of new perspectives, or they will just diversify the funding and also fund modern voices.
So first of all, I'd like to ask people who are with us on the Zoom and maybe want to ask questions. This is a great timing. If you want to ask something, raise your hands or write on the chat, and I'll read it to the imama. I would like to, yes, Tomer, of course. But you're on mute, Tomer.
Yeah, sorry for that. Hi. Salima, thank you so much for this talk. It was inspiring and thoughtful, and I need to process some of the things that you said. I would like to say that your voice is important, and it's rare because people on both sides, I can talk in first hand as myself, we are traumatized, each one in its own way. No comparison between suffering of this side or other side. And since we are inside this trauma, it's hard for us to relate to the other side and acknowledge his suffering. And I know their suffering. I know people, some of them are innocent. I know everything in my head, in my rational mind, but I definitely cannot relate. It's as if I'm sterile of feelings to the other side. So it's take a special person to be able to hold these both ends together and cancel himself. You talked about ego, about being humble. This is exactly what is needed in order to be able to grasp both sides and to see the whole picture and relate to all the sides. And there aren't many people who can do that. So it's very important for people to hear voice as your voice. And I think I totally agree. This is the only way. Love is the only way. We need to find the path to do that. Unfortunately, sorry for expressing my politics, my personal politics opinion, but I think on both sides we are led by extremists,
Yes.
people who abuse this situation, and you know, it's known fact. I would say it's a fact, and we need a new leadership, and we need definitely a new religious leadership. You talked about the old Islam leadership. It's the same thing in Judaism and in Islam, in everywhere. So we need new leaders, liberal, open-minded, those that looking for connection, for peace, for love, for harmony. So it's very important, and this is what will save us
Inshallah.
everywhere. So I just want to say thank you. Keep expressing your opinions, your voice. It's very important to people to be exposed to that, to hear that, to read about it. We need to, I would not say fight, but we need to. This is the light. This is a candle in a big darkness. So it's the first time that I think lately, since the war started, that I hear voice like you. I was waiting for so long to hear something like that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tomer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tomer. So I would like to ask you, I would like to go a bit deeper into the Islamic issue, because you were speaking about, you were taking it as a fact that female imams cause to less radicalization, more moderate approach, etc. But regardless of the identity of or the gender of the imam, the book remained the book, and the Islamic text remained the Islamic text. And when someone says I'm an imam or a female imama, it doesn't matter. He basically respects the Muslim text. It goes hand in hand. Otherwise, you wouldn't call yourself imam. So if we look at the Muslim text, I suspect that most people would say that the male imam that made you angry, he's on the right. Maybe you don't like his perspective, maybe you don't like the answer, but most people would say that his answer is the Islamic answer. In what way will you answer that?
I will answer that. That's an interesting question. Thank you for that. There actually is, if Muslims did what is in the Quran, there would not be any conflict in Israel, because the Quran is a very Zionist book. The Quran commands the Jews to go back to the Holy Land as a command. It's not just suggesting, it's commanding and giving punishment if they don't go to the Holy Land. I don't know if the Torah does this, but the Quran does this. And so they have to go, imams, when they read that, they have to interpret it in a way to go beyond it. So they know it is literally commanded, but they have to like try to look beyond it. So they are already the normal like imams, they're already trying to not do what is written in the Quran. So and there is also a mention in the Quran, a surah that says nobody knows what is in the Quran except God. So if you are interpreting, reading the Quran, you should be aware that nobody knows what is written there except God. So what does that mean? That you cannot tell someone this is what God meant in this surah, this is what God, you have to create your own asking God, like, please help me find the right interpretation what this means. And that's what I do in my work. You have to be Sufi to be a Muslim, I think. You have to be a Sufi to be a Muslim, because you have to ask God to show you which way to go, which path to go, because we don't know. I read this in the Quran, but Literally, the Quran says the Jews are commanded to go to the Holy Land. He does not give any direction of the region, how big it is, but they are commanded to go to the Holy Land. And this goes, if you look at the history of Islam, there have been many instances where Muslim leaders in the Khalifa wanted to have a Jewish kind of country in that kind of region, but the Jews didn't want to go there. They wanted to be in Baghdad, where it was the New York at that time. They didn't want to go to the desert at that time. It was not interesting region to be in. So, but you can see that when Islam conquered Jerusalem, there all the Jews were slaughtered and expelled, and the Muslim Caliph said to the Jews to come back to the Holy Land. And they were brought back by the Muslims. So if you look at who brought the Jews back after the Christians, actually the Persians, the Jews collaborated with the Persians against the Byzantines. And then the Byzantines took revenge on them, so they kicked them. They kicked them out and they slaughtered them and everything. So when the Muslims brought them back, the Christians were very happy with the Muslims, except for that part, because they really hated that the Muslims brought the Jews back to the Holy Land. So if you look at this, you can say that the Muslims were the first Zionists. If you look at that famous Al-Aqsa mosque that is built, I don't know the exact history, but it's connected with the Jews. I think the architect was a Jewish architect, or it was something like that. And the Muslims said we need to clear the trash away so that the Wailing Wall can be for the Muslim. That was only trash there. The Muslims created the Wailing Wall so that it be cleaned and that the Muslims can so that the Jews can pray there. So we were not always opposite each other, we were not always opposite each other. And the Quran can be interpreted in many ways. The Quran is critical of Muslims. The Quran sometimes is critical of Jews. The Quran sometimes blesses Jews and says the Jews were the first ones that Allah approached before all other nations, because they are a blessed nation, a nation of prophets. But also at another time, they are critical of the Jews. So the Quran does not give one black and white kind of definition what Muslims should do. The Quran is just urging us to do good. And when they say don't fight with other religions about who is good or bad, we're not allowed to have polemics to say our God is better. A lot of Muslims are doing this. They are preaching and saying Islam is better than this and that. But we're not allowed. The Quran commands Muslims to not engage in polemics with other religions. The only thing that we are commanded to do is to compete in goodness, to do good things and good deeds. And that is what we are obliged to do. So in the end of the day, to answer your question, the Imams are not really doing what the Quran is saying. The Imams are doing what the tradition is saying. And I think the rabbis are doing something similar. I respect tradition. Tradition has its own place, but it's not the only thing. We should not just focus on tradition, because that's the answers are not there. Every generation has to seek answers again and again and again. You cannot say, oh, it's in the books, so the people from the Middle Ages, they live the same as the people in 3000. So to keep something alive, you have to make it your own. You have to make it your own. And that's what I try to do in my art, to make an old Sufi tradition of looking for God, to make it my own in this modern kind of context. So I'm not just whirling dervishes. They have their place, they do good things. But Islam, Sufi Islam, is not just whirling dervishes. It's also having a jihad fight with your own nafs. And that's what I was doing in my art. And it was very hard for me to do, to finally find that I am the problem, to finally find that I am the cause of everything. And to also, when you know that you are the problem, then you have the responsibility. You are also the solution. And that's why I try to do as much as I can to spread this message that all of us are the solution in the place that we are in. And if your intention is that you want to follow God's path according to your tradition, I think God will help you to find that path. And it doesn't matter if you are working in the IDF, or you are a mother, or you are a female imam, or you're cleaning up the trash. God can guide you to do your work in the way God wants it to. So that's my answer to you.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is that Quran or Muslim text in general, because Quran is not the only Muslim text, the Muslim texts are complex, obviously. They could be, there are, I would say there are good sides or good interpretations and bad interpretations. The male imams are coming from a more, I would say, aggressive point of view, so they're always taking the more aggressive interpretation. But the female imam will come from a more moderate approach, so she will be more compassionate and in our interpretation, and will take the moderate approach.
Well, the problem is, I think that gender that does not always mean that you're more moderate, sadly. But in this case, you see that when you are looking for diversity, new voices, usually it's in the minorities. Like when your female rabbis are doing, in my opinion, a lot more interesting things in cross interreligious things than male rabbis are doing. And I think that that we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And women are more than 50% of the population, so we have to have a place also in the spiritual sense. We've always had them. If you look at the Torah, you will see so many female leaders that have saved the societies of the Jewish people. So women have always participated in Islam and Judaism and Christianity, and we should still participate and not just have fringe positions.
But do you think that it's practical in Islam? Maybe not maybe not today, but in a few years. Do you think it's practical that male Muslims will follow female imams?
I think I have been talking to male imams about things. Sometimes I have been having one-on-one discussions. And I find out that the male imams are also sometimes very open to new interpretations, to new ideas. And so it's not always that the male imams are closed to other ways of doing things. Me as an artist, I found out that actually men in general, not just male imams, but men in general, have been very supportive of my work. The first time I got published in an international magazine was actually from Saudi Arabia. And this was before the Prince Mohammed came into power. So at that time, the women were walking around with hijabs, and it was not yet like how it is now. And yet they published my story in their online magazine, and I got a lot of likes, a lot of support. And I actually gave a khutbah in that article. I gave a sermon. So Saudi Arabia supported me even before European countries published my articles. I tried to do in France something. No, they all ignored me because Europe is very secular. Europe is not really interested in religion. So the thing that I found out is that sometimes you are surprised that a country like Saudi Arabia is giving a female imam like me, who is very radical. I talk about so many very complex things, and they just publish me in their newspaper with my picture, without hijab, wearing my avant-garde sexy clothes, and they published me in their magazine. So you can be. I was very surprised by that, by the level of interest from men in Muslim societies.
It is very surprising. You spoke before about female rabbis as your model. In Judaism, female rabbis came with the birth of Reform Judaism as a new sect in Judaism that is separated from the Orthodox Judaism. Would you describe this process of the birth of female imams as maybe as the birth of Reformic Islam? Or a reformed Islam?
I think that in my perspective, there are some that are doing reform Islam. They are also embracing LGBT rights, and it's a very activist, reformed kind of structure. But what I'm doing is actually ancient Islam. I'm not a reform Islam person. For example, I am not for abortion. You know, I have been studying abortion, and I found out that the infant is like 4 weeks. It can already feel pain, more pain than a born baby. And then they don't even use they don't even do any kind of, I don't know the word, to make it less painful. Anesthesia. They're not even using anesthesia, and they're just giving so much suffering to these creatures. It's not yet a baby, but it's still a creature that feels pain, a human creature that feels pain. And these mothers, they seem to not even know, or even to not ignore this fact. So I have been very adamant and outspoken about this, that we need to pay attention that this creature that is in the womb can already feel pain. We don't know if it's conscious yet or not, but it can feel pain. This is proven after 4 weeks. It's clearly proven that it can feel pain. What are we doing again? Are we using tranquilizers? Are we, informing the women? Are we doing something? So I'm not for that. And so I'm a very traditional kind of approach, but I'm in solidarity with the women. I feel that they should not make these hard choices of their own children. But so I'm not a reform kind of Muslim. I'm sometimes very traditional, but I'm open to new insights. Sometimes you learn new things in the society that you are in, like, for example, about homosexuality, that you have new insights. So those new insights, they make you change, like the traditional kind of interpretation. But if I have to say what I am, I'm not a reform. I'm a Sufi. I'm traditional Moroccan Muslim. And but there are reform imams. There are other imams that are they call themselves reform or liberal imams. Or sometimes I call myself also liberal imam, because you have to give yourself a name. Yeah, if I have to be honest, I come from tradition, and this gives me the liberty to do what I do. Because if I do this in the context of just reform Islam, there would be no space for my Sufi experiences. It would be just delusional. They would say this is illness or delusion. There would not be a Sufi tradition that supports this. Well, I can also say that my art is surrealism. I'm making surrealist Islamic art, but still, I come from a tradition, and so I'm not reform.
So I'm going to try to challenge you and remind you that our audience basically are non-Muslim and are not very familiar with the Sufi ideas. And I'll ask you to try to explain in few minutes a very brief explanation of what is Sufi Islam.
Sufi Islam is in my perspective, Sufi Islam is the true Islam, because Islam is calling upon Muslims to perform the great jihad, and the great jihad is the jihad of the nafs. That's all.
The inner jihad.
Inner
the
jihad.
Jihad of the soul.
Exactly.
Which is not against someone else, but an inner struggle.
In struggle, the great jihad, and there is no other movement in Islam that is, as far as I know, doing the great jihad except Sufism. And Sufism is, we call it Sufism in the West, but Muslims among themselves, they just call it Islam. Sufism has been the dominant version of Islam for centuries. It's only very recently that Sufism has become niche in some kind of cases. But Sufism is actually, in my view, is Islam. If you look at the Prophet...
Original Islam.
Original Islam, because if you look at the Prophet, alayhi salam, he went to a cave and he was meditating there, looking for God to give him answers. I don't know any, Salafi or whatever Muslim, modern Muslim, that goes to a cage except the Sufis. The Sufis are the only ones that are doing what the Prophet has been doing. So, in my perspective, the Sufi Islam and the waging of the great jihad is the most important thing. But I noticed that after the great jihad, you can do the small one, because then you know the truth. You know the truth that God has given you, your personal truth. So now that I know the settler Shlomo and Hamas Salim, and that I am the problem, now I know I can do something, create something, and do an organization and try to help people to understand complexity, because we're not yet there's so many scientific researches, but science is still in its baby steps. We have science only a few hundred years. We have science. All the other years we had, as a humanity, we had all other kind of knowledge. We had mystical knowledge. Even rabbis, if you look at the rabbis that were in the past, even in the present, they have mystical knowledge. If you look at the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's not just about the Torah, he's also sharing mystical knowledge, as far as I know, because I have a mystical connection with it. It's not just objectively translating the Torah. It's a mystical knowledge. It's to try to connect with something bigger than you are. And when you enter that realm, you are entering an unknown realm, a realm of something that is not yet scientifically researched. So religion, I feel, is by its definition Sufi. No matter what kind of religion you have, I think if you're looking for God on a personal level, waging the great jihad, you are entering mystical realm. And that is what I see as Sufism. It's a mystical kind of realm. And Islam, without its mysticism, what is Islam? It's just a set of rules. If you just have a set of rules and you're not looking for God, then you're just performing kind of rituals and you're not really aware of what you're doing. I don't know what that is, but in my view, that is not the Islam that I see as Islam, because Islam for me is something very personal. It's a direct relationship that I'm building, and it's an insecure position. And the moment people say, I know what God says, I know what, then you're not really looking for God, because the more I'm looking for God, the less I know, the more insecure I become.
Okay. I have two last questions, but maybe people from the audience would like to ask themselves, so I'm giving another opportunity over here. My first question before we start summing it up, how do you see, or what do you plan for your personal future? You're mentioning an organization that you want to initiate. What do you want to do with the organization in general?
My goal of the organization is to offer not just an activist. Usually you see at this moment a lot of activism. You see like the Palestinian activism, the flotilla, for example, activism. They found out that the flotilla was, I discovered that recently, that the flotilla was created by Hamas, someone from Hamas. And then, these liberal people enter the boat, and so they are being used by terrorist organizations. So it's a quagmire of insecurities. It's what should you do? Some people are doing Zionist work, but they are creating more hate of Jews because of that. I see so many Zionist organizations that are creating more hate because of their approach. The way they do it, they are not doing it in a holistic way. They think that if we share this information, the people will listen, but it's more complex. It doesn't work like that. It's much more complex than just promoting this idea and the Palestinians are evil. It doesn't work. The traditional Zionist way at this moment in Europe is not working. It backfires. So my personal goal is to create an organization that helps people into understanding complexity from a creative, artistic kind of way. And I'm now talking about true art, not activist, leftist art, but true art that is independent and that's not just about telling whatever the person that's giving you money trying to, or the agenda or whatever. I don't understand what they believe in, but to make an organization that really promotes true peace from an understanding of love, and not just love in a like an airy-fairy kind of way, but love in a very deep and personal way that each of us, when all of us, nobody's perfect. You know, I had in my process of talking to Settler Shlomo, I had anti-Semitic feelings at that moment. So we're all in the mud together, and I feel that God is the only one that can help us to get out of the mud. And part of that love is to not judge the people, to say, oh, this is evil, or they are evil, but to seek everything in yourself, to all say, what can I do? What can I change in my life? So my goal is to set an organization that promotes dialogue, not from a kind of activist dialogue perspective, because I see others that are doing dialogue, they're not talking about the difficulty. You know, I'm actually being honest about me having anti-Semitism kind of feelings. And so I'm not talking, it's not activism that I'm doing. It's actually spiritual work of spreading like the power of God. I haven't created it yet, but this is the global kind of goal, is to help people to get an understanding of the complexity from a standpoint of view that is personal, and not just activism that someone else decides what you should think, because that's what we are in now. Others decide what their agenda is, and they say you should follow this political way, you should be Zionist or should be anti-Zionist. People are not getting the real situation here. You know, they're not really getting what is going on. And I saw just in the Dutch newspaper, like the Israelis, they all support the genocide in Gaza. That was like the headline. And I felt like in my own journey, this is not true. This is not true. They're not supporting the genocide in Gaza. The Israelis are at this moment fighting survival. It's a different language that we need to use. And we can only do that from a place of love. Not from a place of activism, not from Zionism, not from anti-Zionism, but from a place of love that is spiritual love from God, not that God gives us, not something that that we can create.
So now the last question, unless someone wants to add something or to ask.
כן, אני אשמח לשאול שאלה.
בטח, רוצה בעברית ואני אתרגם או...
I can do also in English, and I can also speak French if you come from Morocco.
Je parle français aussi.
Vous parlez français.
אבל אז הצופים לא יבינו.
נכון.
So for the sake of our audience, either English or you ask in Hebrew and I'll translate to English.
Okay, I'm gonna try to talk English. So welcome. I am very happy to meet you. I was always attracted by the Sufi section in the Islam, you know, in the Occident. It's very, very 40, 15 years, you know, Rumi, and even in Israel, it's very, you know, all my friends and also my family, you know, read the poem, and we know, and we dance, and we... but I know that in the Islam world, it's a part that is very not accepted. So how can you... I meet one a Muslim guy from London that come in Jerusalem, and I was like intuitivement, how to say that in English? I told him, you know, the solution for the Islam world is Sufi. So he said me, yeah. And it's, you know, I laugh about that because it was very tamim, innocent, you know, because it's so hard here. You cannot talk. You know, I talk with people here in the villages around me, and it's so hard. So I invite you to come to Israel, first of all, and to see here the people, and to see how much a lot of people here, I know they are not paid for have, you know, they almost no money to the asbara. How do you say asbara in English?
Propaganda probably, but it's not the...
I like to explain Israel, to explain the Zionists. There
Public
is not a lot of
diplomacy.
money. And a lot of people do that by voluntary, you know, like Tom did in the you know. So a lot of people here, it's not only activist side, like be paid and make a job and have, people are very, in Israel, we have a lot of argument between us all the time. So people are thinking, are talking, are changing mind, you know, I think things like this, and after a couple of years, think something else. So it's very, and the Sufi, I think it's very important to like start to spread it out in the Islam world, but it's very difficult because I cannot do that like Muslims should do that. And it's like, it's also, you know, how it's difficult to change mentality and to change so I want to, how you do that in the Muslim environment.
Okay, thank you. What is your name?
Ita.
Ita, mashallah. You are also Moroccan?
Yeah, part. Yeah, my grandfather, the father and the mother of my grandmother come from Marrakesh and Casablanca.
Mashallah.
Yeah, he was an orphelin, and he grew up in the, you know, the Pinchas HaKohen, the big rabbi that was saved all the time. The king of Morocco want to kill him, and all the time he was saving his life.
Mashallah.
So he's, yeah.
Mashallah, thank you for sharing this. I feel that the Sufi tradition is still in Morocco the dominant religion. We have a king who is a direct descendant of the Prophet. A lot of Sufis actually, practicing Sufis, are descendants of the Prophet. So it's a mystical religion that actually is very authentic. It's not like for example, the Muslim Brotherhood. It's very new. It's not authentic, hundreds of years old. It's very recent, and it can be compared with nationalist movements. And it's not really rooted in the traditions of Islam like Sufism is. So Sufism has been for centuries, for more than 1,000 years, it has been the dominant kind of religion. And you can still see that. A lot of countries are Sufi. You can go to India, they have so many shrines. You can go to Morocco, it still has many shrines. So the Sufi religion is very much based upon personal experience of Islam. It's a personal journey of Islam. It's not based upon authoritarian kind of Islam. It's based upon your personal journey. And that has always been the approach of Islam itself. Islam in the Quran says to people to seek direct connection with God. They don't say listen to your imam. They say seek a direct connection by praying 5 times a day. If you look at Judaism, you also have 3 times a day, you know, the morning, in the midday, and in the evening. So these traditions, they are created so that we have an intimate connection with God. 5 times a day we have to talk with God. 5 times a day we have to communicate with God. And throughout the day, especially Sufism do zikr, they remember God. I think the Judaism has similar kind of traditions. You have to have God conscious throughout your day, because that's how you stay clean and pure. And the Quran mentions that. That's how we purify our soul. So I don't know the political movements we have now in Europe. There are a lot of Muslim Brotherhood organizations that have a lot of money from the Gulf countries. They are not Sufi Islam. If you look at Moroccan Islam, there is still mosques in the Netherlands that are Moroccan Islam. They are Sufi, you know, they have Sufi traditions. They sing, there is music, there is room for contemplation, there is room for a female imam like me. But even countries like Saudi Arabia are now opening up and allowing almost Sufi kind of approach, because they were the first country to publish me. And I think the first country to be Sufi was Saudi Arabia, because that's where the Prophet started, in Saudi Arabia. So I think it also would help if the Jewish community reached out to Sufi leaders, to female imams, to collaborate more. I think too little is happening at this moment. I have been actually very much trying to get into contact with Jewish organizations here in the Netherlands, but I feel they want to stay distant. They don't want to have this connection. And I understand it, because they are now at this moment very much in survival kind of mode. And I think the Jews in Europe are much more scared than the Jews in Israel. I think the Israeli Jews are much more empowered than the Jews here are still living in the shadow of the Holocaust. So they are afraid of everything. And for me, it is difficult, because I have to knock on doors multiple times and put my foot in the door. And it has to come a lot from me, I feel. And so it would help me if there would be more space to collaborate. Like in the past, Muslims have been collaborating with Jews for so long. And I come
in Morocco, especially till now.
In Morocco.
Of course.
My great grandfather was the number one, the upper imam of Melilla, which is in Spain, but it's North Africa. There's a large Jewish community there, also Muslim community.
It's only technically Spain.
It's technically Spain, yes, but it's
even here, even here in the small moshav that I live, you have Moroccans that was talking Spanish, and they would call them the children between them. No, yes. You are Spanish. You Morocco. You have here also here.
The funny thing is, my brother tested his DNA, and I found out that my family DNA is still Spanish. It's like 90%, it's Southern European. And so it strengthens the family history that we came from Granada, that we were kicked out of Granada to Morocco. So the Jews and the Muslims of Morocco, we share a big history together, and we should not allow others that are not sharing this great history to distract us from this very ancient connection that we have having this connection for long. And my own great grandfather was imam in Melilla, and his mosque is Mezquita Central. I go there almost every year. The designer of the Mezquita Central is the same designer as the one of the synagogue. And the synagogue and the mosque have the same kind of inspiration from the Mosque of Cordoba. And it was designed by a student of Gaudi, and he did that. So Melilla is the only city of Spain where there has been no Inquisition. There has been no Inquisition in Melilla. So Muslims have been living there peacefully with Christians, with Jews, and we prospered. And still there, I feel like this city for me is like is also a responsibility to make my voice heard. Although I don't have the funds and the popularity of the other imams, I think my message is much stronger. I have a better message. My message is, it's stronger. And so it's about the quality, not about the quantity. So, I love that you are open for Sufism, that you are looking to talk to people when you are to Muslims to connect despite.
And I come from also a Hasidic family. So So I grew up, you know, with all the stories of the Baal Shem Tov and all the...
You were a Sufi. Then you were a Sufi.
Yeah, that's what I say, you know, and it's very interesting because we talk with a guy in Israel that his name is Darwish, and he's Druze. And they ask him, what is so special? How the Druze, they are so different people that around, you know, all the Sunni and the Shia and the Druze, they are so different. And he say it's the mystical that we are into. Oh, sorry. It's because the mystical part,
MashaAllah.
the mystical that he is into the religion, part
MashaAllah.
of the religion that changes us, and he also give us the example of the Sufi, that they're very close, the Druze and the Sufi.
Thank you so much. I didn't know this. I didn't know this. So this is the connection. I think the Druze, the Sufis, and the Chassid need to connect with each other because we are the solution. We are the solution to, because we see deeper than the surface, and we are, most of us, all of us, are stuck in the surface, and we cannot. When you're stuck in the surface, you don't see the light of God. You just see darkness all over you, and the light of God can pull us out of the darkness, and it's everywhere. It's in Israel. It's in your heart, basically.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for meeting you, and I hope that we can also continue to
Inshallah.
talk and to learn together and to share.
Inshallah, please give me her name so that we can stay in touch.
Of
I'm
course,
not
I'd love that. I'd love that.
Or whomever wants to stay in touch. Thank you.
Definitely. I just have the urge to add that on one of our previous sessions at this channel at the Middle East Center, we had, it's in Hebrew, so you won't be able to understand it, but we had a dialogue between a Hasidic rabbi and a Sufi imam about the mutual aspects of Sufism and Hasidism, and it's a fascinating topic. I think that it can be discussed for hours and years. Maybe
אני רוצה להגיד כמה מילים.
כן,
אני לא מצליחה לפתוח את המצלמה, משהו כאן נתקע. אבל אני רוצה להגיד שאני כל כך מתרשמת מהשיחה הזאת. אני חסידית סופית רביי.
משאללה.
אני חסידה...
תני רק לתרגם אותך, הדסה, נעשה את זה משפט אחרי משפט. I will translate. First of all, Hadassah Foreman, I am very honored to have Rabbinite Hadassah Foreman with us. She's the widow of Rabbi Foreman, who is one of the prominent voice in Judaism for peace and dialogue with the Muslim world, and a prominent voice by itself for dialogue and regional peace. Hadassah wanted to say that she is very excited to hear you, and that she is herself is a Hasidic Sufi rabbi, so to speak. הדסה, תמשיכי בבקשה, אני אמשיך לתרגם.
אני אומרת שאנחנו מאוד התעניינו בדת הסופית, ואנחנו גם עשינו זיקרים עם קהילות סופיות כאן בארץ, וגם בעיקר בטורקיה, עם מתין, שהוא באי הנסיכים, הוא מורה חסידי מאוד גדול, בימת המרמרה, ואני גם חושבת שהדרך הסופית זה בדיוק הדרך שבה האיסלם והיהדות יכולה להתחבר, ויש לנשים תפקיד מאוד גדול כאן, מאוד גדול וחשוב, ואני מאוד אשמח להיות בקשר איתה.
אוקיי, אז אני אתרגם. Hadassah says that they had a lot of experiences and dialogue with the Sufis. She mentioned a specific experience in Turkey with a prominent Sufi scholar in Turkey. And she also believes that Sufism is the answer and the bridge that can that can bridge between Islam and Judaism, specific
Inshallah.
Hasidic Judaism. Hello, Hadassah. We can see you upside down, but it's still nice to see you.
לשנות את זה.
Okay, okay. And she also added that she would like to be in contact with you, if you may.
Please.
I
Yes.
will take it upon myself
Thank
to
you.
connect you too, because I think it's very important.
Thank you. Thank you.
תגיד גם שאני מורה למיסטיקה, והמיסטיקה מאוד פוגשת את התורה הסופית.
She said she also teaches.
יש לנו גם חכמים.
She said she also teaches mystics, Jewish mystics, and it really comes together with Sufism, and many rabbis in Israel understand that it comes together with Sufism.
I want to say that the Sufi Judaism is the answer for us Muslims as well, because the Hasids are the answer we believe that I believe that the Hasids are the answer. You mentioned Hassaf Roman, and I connect with her, and I don't understand her language, but my heart understands her heart. We believe in the same God. We have the same God. I am living with her, and I want to give my support to her and her community, and I feel the pain. I feel that it's very difficult to work for peace in time of war, and I will pray for you. I will pray for your family. I will pray for your husband who went to Allah. I feel so honored to meet you and to have this connection with you, and I feel the love. Thank you for doing everything that you do. I can feel it. We don't need to understand each other, but I feel my heart tells me this woman, she's almost like a saint. She's doing God's work, and she's doing it from her place of love, and we feel that from each other. And this is maybe why Sufism and Hasidikism, because we speak the same language of love, we can feel beyond the barriers. We feel each other, we understand each other, and I feel that a lot of people in the Muslim community, we have not stood still by what happened on October the 7th. We did not stand still. We're just focusing on our own suffering and pain and colonialism and all of that. We could not allow the humanity to enter our heart, and she's allowing both. She's having humanity for the Palestinians. She's having humanity for the Jewish people, and even the Muslims that were murdered on October the 7th. May God bless you for all your prayers. You know, I can feel that you are a woman of prayer, and I am one. I try to be one too, but I'm not as advanced as you are. I hope that with years I will be like you. But thank you for doing everything that you do, from my heart to yours. Thank you. Thank you.
תודה רבה. Thank you very much, and I feel maybe you and Ita and we will maybe do something new together.
Inshallah.
Everything has a reason. This Zoom call as well has a reason. Everything has a purpose. So does this Zoom call. I hope that, we talked about this before on our group, the potential between Hasidism and Sufism, but this is something that should be more explored, that should be taken to the ground more, that should be thread on more, okay? We have to walk in these shoes, we have to speak this language, we have to find the common ground. It has a lot of potential. And before we will adjourn, I would like to ask you a very complicated question, and it will be very fair if you will say that you don't have an answer, but maybe you do, we're struggling, we're trying to make sense of the problem that is called the Middle East. How would you solve it? It's a very general question, it's a big challenge, but let's hear you.
Okay. How would I solve it? The thing is, I will give you my perspective. The thing is that in the past, in the Middle East, leaderships from the have made the mistakes. Arab leaders made the mistakes. In Anwar Sadat of Nasser, Egypt, the Jordanian king attacked Israel. They made the mistakes, and even Israel leadership has made the mistakes as well. But we should not live in the past. We should learn from their mistakes because they have had a situation. They did their best in that situation, but we should not repeat their mistakes. We should learn from it. And I think that there are two leaders that I have in high esteem, and one leader is Rabin, who died a martyr. But Rabin was an Israeli leader who was on the one hand very strong, but on the other hand, he was also committed to peace and durable peace. And he understood more than I think anyone what that takes. And I connected with him because Sufis are very often have also like mediumistic kind of talent. And I used that talent to channel Rabin. And Rabin was very worried about the radicalism is also inside Israel. And he was also very worried about Iran. He said Iran never dared to attack Israel in the past. Now it is attacking thanks to decisions made, mistakes. He saw that as mistakes made by the current Israeli government. And so I feel that he, and as well as the Jordanian old king that has passed away, they were friends at the end of their lives of each other. And they, I think, more than anyone have understood how much the costs of war. You know, they have Netanyahu didn't have a lot of experience with war, but Rabin has been waging a war since he was young until he was old. So he knows the costs of war. So he also knows the value of peace. And with the Jordanian king, it was the same thing. And I think these leaders, we need to acknowledge them. We need to listen to what they said, what they wrote, what they did, and learn from them, learn from their mistakes, but also from their goal, from what they did. They made a mistake. The Arab leaders made the mistake to attack Israel when it was created. That was the biggest mistake they made, because this caused the Palestinian refugee problem. If they did not attack, there would never have been a problem. And now they are blaming Israel to take responsibility of this refugee problem. And they're not seeing that this responsibility is also theirs, because they made the mistake. They attacked. They didn't have to attack. They made the decision to attack, and this created this problem. So even Palestinians are saying the Arab countries created this problem for us. And now we are, we have nothing. We have nothing to go, nowhere to go. We are in this situation. So I think we now need responsible leadership from all sides, and to learn from the mistakes that were made in the past. And we should not judge Netanyahu and say he's Hitler. This is why I'm very angry at artists that are culturally deciding at this moment in the West, deciding the dialogue, and they just say Netanyahu is Hitler, because that's not how they will help the Palestinians. By calling Netanyahu Hitler, emotionally you can say a lot of things, but an artist has responsibility towards his art. You have a responsibility to go deeper. And by saying that this man is a Hitler, it's not giving justice to the complexity of this situation and also to the solutions. So to give a short answer, I think that we should respect the kind of leadership that the Jordanian king showed us, and at the end of his life, and that Rabin showed us at the end of his life. And even the current leaders in Arab world, like, for example, the king of Saudi Arabia, the king of Morocco, these are countries that are taking a lot of action. And to be honest, I wrote a letter to Donald Trump before he did the Abraham Accords. And I suggested actually to him to do something similar in the Middle East. And I said that the Houthis in Yemen are terrorists, and they should not be terrorizing the Yemeni people who did not vote for them. And Iran is supporting terrorism. Iran has a responsibility to not support terrorism in countries because it's creating so much problems in Yemen. People are suffering in Yemen. It's not in the news, but these Houthis are creating so much hunger, so much conflict. I have a friend who is a Yemeni leader, and he's telling me these Houthis are destroying everything. So the enemy it's not Israel. The enemy for Yemen, it's Iran that is supporting these Houthi terrorists. So I think that Iran needs to be real Muslim. When you look at the account of the Ayatollah, it said Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the merciful, the kind. That why aren't you acting like that? Why are you destroying Yemen? Why are you creating all these trouble in the world? Just follow Islam that is compassionate, and they try to do strong, but they are not strong. Humans, we die. We are just dust. God is strong. So they need to stop, I think, Israel and also Iran and also all these groups, stop thinking that they are strong, but that God is strong. And to be like leaders like Suleiman and David. We have common prophets in Islam and in Judaism. We see Suleiman as a typical legendary leader that is responsible. And I feel that Ayatollah Khomeini needs to read the verses of Suleiman and learn that to become more like Suleiman instead of trying to be tough and strong, and which they are not. You cannot be tough by supporting all kinds of rebel groups and doing all kinds of politics. This is not a believe in God. If you believe in God, you surrender to God, and it's a different kind of approach. And so I feel that that the leaders, we should not just look at the leaders for the solutions. I think maybe what we can do on a Hasidic and Sufi level might be much more strong than on a political level, because eventually we are spiritual creatures. We are not political creatures. Humans are spiritual creatures. We looking for connection. We are looking to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be understood. Everybody wants to connect. And when you want these things deeply, then if you try to do that, I feel that if it starts with one drop, but then the rain starts. So we need to support these drops, like from Hasada Froman and from Ita. My Hebrew is not very good.
Yes, Hadassah.
I think these women are the solution. If I'm really honest, I think these women, they are the solution, because the rain starts with one drop and then it becomes a storm. It never starts with a storm. It starts with one drop. And I think this is how God works. God doesn't work with power and weapons. God works from the heart. And the more we open our hearts towards ourselves, towards God, that we surrender. I don't know the answer. I surrender to God to give me the answer. And then if we allow, then God can work through us. Just like Suleiman asked God, he asked him, what should I give you? He said, give me wisdom. So God used him as a vessel of God's wisdom. And that's what all our leaders should pray for, not to pray for more power or more weapons, but to pray for to be like Suleiman, to have more wisdom. And I feel that then it will be beautiful in the Middle East. I am 100% sure if that happens, that this will happen, inshallah.
Thank you so much. It was inspiring, truly. Before we will depart, I will ask you if there's anything that you want to add, that you feel that you haven't said and you wish to say. So this is the time.
Okay. Well, my personal... I think that the Gaza-Palestinian conflict, if that is solved, inshallah, I think it will have a very good positive influence, not just on the Middle East, but on the world. And I feel that this will happen, and it depends on, I don't know how long it will happen, but I feel that AI can be a tool of God. And my feeling is that it will be like a federation Palestine and Israel, like a federation, kind like yin and yang, and that AI will be prominent in the political decision making, so that it will be more like Suleiman. It will be more honest and fair for everyone. And I don't know how long it will take, maybe 1 year, maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, but the sooner I feel this will happen, the more the better it will be. So we don't need all these victims. Every human life is a library of experiences. We should not be this how do you say that? We should respect human life, and I feel that using technology can be a part of also the spiritual development, and I feel that we need to take it seriously, that we can work with AI and maybe create one country. That's my feeling is telling me that there will be like a federation of Israel and Palestine. It will be like a federation, and it will be supported by artificial intelligence to make difficult decisions in politics. I feel that this is the solution. Before this, I thought maybe Jordan will become Palestine. I hear so many saying Jordan will become Palestine, but I was before this, but my intuition is telling me that Palestine will be a federation, and it will become like Cordoba in the past, that scholars from Muslim nations and scholars from Hebrew nations will collaborate and learn from each other and have shared universities. It's already happening. I've heard someone say that there is a Sufi university in Haifa or somewhere in Haifa. So it's already happening on a nobody sees this, but there is already collaboration between Judaism and Islam in Israel. And I feel that the Palestinians will be much more successful with Israel than without. So with Israel, with them, it will be much more successful than without. And the AIPAC that is currently under a lot of scrutiny in the world, AIPAC will become an organization that supports international peace. And that currently AIPAC is a lot focused on Israel, but it will be a new focus. It will be focused on collaboration, international collaboration, not just with Palestine, but also with Africa, with Asia, with solving conflicts from past experiences. And it will be like a holy, how do you say, I'm getting emotional by this, but I feel that there is a lot of potential. And if the more people connect with God, I feel the sooner, like, how do you say, the Jews believe in the coming of the Messiah, the sooner the Messiah will come. The more we connect with each other by the heart, and it's not just the Messiah of the Jewish people, but it will be the Messiah of the whole world. It will be a new paradigm shift in the entire world. And that is what I see and what I try to fight for in my life.
It was definitely worth asking this question. We received an amazing answer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you're doing and being the pioneer that you are.
Thank you.
And I really hope that we will be able to host you in Israel. You are more than welcomed, and I think that the time will come. Of course, after this, we will try to connect a few powerful women over here for joint action, and I hope that it will be amazing.
Amen. I pray for every participant in this group that God will help you and guide you towards more happiness and towards more joy and health, inshallah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very
Amen.
much for meeting you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mama. Have a good night.
Thank you, and maybe
Good night.
we should
Thank you, Hadassah. Thank you.
stay together.
Please, inshallah.